On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, Nuke it from orbit, the Navy wants some Blaser Rifle Mags, and robbing billionaires. Okay, good evening everybody. This is episode 401 of the John1911 Podcast. Today is Monday, April the 13th at 9:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be a solo episode and I'm getting it done a little bit late. A little confession, I'm really tired. But I wanted to get this podcast out, and it was just easier to just go ahead and get it done at night as opposed to waiting for it tomorrow. So I guess first thing is I wanted to do is a little bit of a housekeeping. I've made a small change to the website. You probably wouldn't really notice it, but we have a hunting outdoors section. We have expanded that to be hunting outdoors and off-road. It's where we've been putting, our off-road vehicle stuff, but, we put the tractor stuff there and we're doing, range maintenance or anything like in the woods or hunting and, and all that kind of stuff. So, that section now is expanded to include off-road. So obviously the Ineos Grenadier, and, we have changed how it presents on the homepage. It used to do a random, like every time you refresh the page, it would just randomly populate. But we have enough content now for the hunting outdoors section that it will go ahead and just populate sequentially. So, to get the latest news from, hunting and outdoors. And so, there's that. The second thing is, I'm going to start off with a thank you. So we put out a call. I'm going to say request, a call that we are putting up it's a cork bulletin board at the John1911 Range barn, and it's right by the front door. And we have asked police departments who have shot at our range to go ahead if they are comfortable to give us patches or whatever they have. So we've had a couple police departments come by immediately. We've had a number that have not. But, in fairness, I haven't really talked to them, so that's fine. When they show up, they'll start all looking at this board and wondering, why their department isn't up there. And so, well, if there's only been a few police departments that have come by and giving us patches, why are there a ton of patches? Because of you. I am blown away by what has shown up from patches and challenge coins from all across the country. And it's been, I'll admit it, I don't know why. It's just been every time one of these things shows up, it's like a Christmas present. I feel like a little kid. I'm just so excited. So, and it's been the source of a lot of conversation, especially considering that some of you are really far away and have obviously never been at our range, or typically, and it has left impressions upon people who have been stopping at the range, wow, John1911 is really, it's not just us talking into the into the night by ourselves like some crazy person, waiting for the straitjacket people to show up. It's been something. So we've had stuff from the South, we've had stuff from the West Coast, we've had county sheriffs, we've had federal departments, we've had federal law enforcement agencies. We've had all kinds of things and all kinds of stuff in between. So here's two things that I want to say. So first of all, number one, thank you. Also, if you are military and you want to send us a challenge coin or a unit patch, or please do. It absolutely will go up on the wall. And but I wanted to say thank you for all of that. And if you want to send any more, if there's anyone out there on the fence, please feel free. You can reach out, podcast at John1911.com, and I'll give you our mailing address. Our mailing address should be at the bottom of our newsletter. If you sign up for our email, it should be at the bottom of our newsletter. I think that's kind of a requirement now for spam. We have to put our address in the newsletter. So there's that. And the second thing is, and this actually has come up 3 times, and one of them was assumed. And what it is we promise that if you send us something from your department or your sheriff's office or your agency or your organization or your task force or your unit or, whatever in between that you've got, that we will not blast it all over the internet. We've had some people, and, for number one, a lot of the local departments, we can't, we can't put their stuff on the internet. Like if you see cops on our social media, like they're black barred out and whatever, and nothing is even like license plate vehicles. I go through it pretty well. So like we're not going to show local cops. So if you send us something, we're not going to blast, like, hey everybody, like Acme department from whatever, sent us this, and we're going to put it on the website. Well, we're not offended if you don't want that. And we wouldn't do that to you. And we understand because, the official position of law enforcement agencies is probably not going to be in line with John 1911 because we have opinions. So, we're not trying to keep a command staff happy, a city manager happy, or a city council happy. So if we call our balls and strikes as we see them. So if you think enough to send us something, you can be comfortable and rest assured that we're not going to be blasting your stuff all over the internet. And every other department and group that comes through John 1911's range will see your challenge coin, unit patch, department patch, organizational, whatever it is you got. It'll be right there by the front door. So, which also kind of, encourages them or peer pressures them to give up, to put a patch up there too. So it's kind of a little game, and it adds a little decor to the inside of the range barn. Like, come on, like a call just can't be, Amish pine wood and leather furniture in there. Like we gotta have some personality. So thank you all who have sent us stuff to put on our board. And again, if it's a challenge coin, we have a way to hang the challenge coins too. Don't worry about it. Thank you all for everything you have sent. And if you want to send anything else at any time in the future, please feel free. We would be honored and love to have it. Speaking of things that have come in the mail, this has been a long time coming. This is going to be out of the blue for most of you. I have a Blaser rifle update topic to discuss. So, in essence, there are two. Real quick, there's 2 types of Blaser rifles. In essence, the straight pull guns. There is the Blaser R8, which is the current series of guns they make, and then there's the Blaser. I'll call it the Tactical 2. Which is the police sniper version that was made in like 93, 94, that they stopped supporting them, I don't know, in the mid to late 2000, I don't know, by 2010, they pretty much had shut that down. And various, groups around the world have used these guns. I have one. You've seen it on my social media. You'll see a lot more of it this year because there's a lot going on with the rifle range. And, one of the things that is always kind of interest is, the Australian, I guess it's the Australian Defence Force. I call it the Australian military, Australian Defence Force. They adopted the Blaser Tactical 2. And it's a switch caliber. And so I believe, I'm pretty certain I know this. They adopted it in .308 and then a switch caliber to .338 Lapua Magnum. And what they had done is, they're a sovereign country, and they probably worked out some kind of deal with Blaser where they get some kind of TDP, technical data package, for the guns. And so there was a company in Australia that is a defense contractor called X-Tech, X-T-E-T-E-T-E-X, I think, or maybe it's X-T-E-C, I can't remember. It escapes me. And this company in Australia made custom magazines for the Blaser Tactical 2 guns for the Australian Defence Forces. These magazines were generally never really seen outside of Australia. Might be, I think, a few examples, but they made extended, I think, 308 mags, and they made a custom 338 Lapua mag as well. And we done, because I do Blaser stuff, and I had posted about these magazines and a little story on them, because, it's like, oh, this is interesting, just to put it up for my Blaser fans. And we, over the course of about 5 years, we would be contacted by X-Tech in Australia. And they were always interested in working out a deal to bring these magazines into the United States, because I think the Australian military is possibly done with the Blaser, or they're going to be phasing them out. They're aging out. And they've got these molds, they've made these magazines, and they were thinking about having it be an opportunity to make some more money on a sunk cost. They've already spent the money on the molds, and they could get some more money out of it. And it was to the point where we were negotiating possibly being a distributor for these X-Tech products, importing them in. At one point I was going to fly to one of the shows in, I don't know if it was going to be in Paris, or if it was going to be in, I can't remember. I don't think it was going to be in Dubai, but, possibly go meet with them, and then they would disappear. And then like a couple, 3 or 4 or 5 years later, they would pop back up, and they would email us, and they would contact us, and it'd be real serious. And then boom, they would disappear again. And so I don't know. I just figured it was what it was, or maybe they don't like John1911 having opinions, or maybe they don't like Americans. So, but anyway, they would always disappear. Well. Content that you post on the internet has kind of a long tail, and is, all around the world. Eventually, if somebody's interested in this subject, or uses this product, or is, somehow trying to support this product, they will eventually land on our website, especially for Blasers. And I'm going to be because I don't know what I can say. I'm just going to say that we have a source in Australia that reached out, and they had a whole mess of 338 Lapua magazine Blasers made by X-Tech, brand new in the box. I'm going to say a whole mess. I didn't think they have hundreds, but they had more than I would ever need. And I thought they were very reasonably priced. And so we agreed to buy 3 of them, and we had to do this, wire transfer, to a bank in Australia and all that. And I vetted the guy. He might even be listening to this podcast. I don't know. I'm not going to use his name. Again, just like the police patches things. And so, do the deed, do the transfer. And it had been so long, I kind of forgot about them. And as a matter of fact, when we first ordered these magazines, I expected at some point I was going to get a letter from customs saying, hey, you owe us, 50% duty tariff or something on these products. Even if they'd let them in. So it just took a long time, and I almost got to the point, it's like, well, they may be gone. Well, they showed up this week, and we have X-Tech 338 Lapua magazines from Australia, which, I was pretty low on 338 Lapua magazines for the Blaser. I think I only had really 1, maybe 2. So, now I've got 4, maybe 5. So I'll do some follow-ups with it. 338 Lapua is just not around that I shoot a whole lot, simply because our range is only 600 yards. And so it's not really worth shooting 338. So, but if you're a Blaser guy, we've got these magazines. If you are in the market and you want a 338 Lapua magazine, these are single stack, flush fit mags that are the same footprint as a standard OEM Blaser magazine, if you need a 338 Lapua magazine, this guy's got them. We can just certainly pass on your information to him and see if, if he wants to sell you a magazine. He sold them to us, so I don't know. He probably has another handful, I'm thinking. We certainly would do that for you if you're a Blaser guy. So email me, podcast@john1911.com, podcast@john1911.com. Okay, let's see. We got a bunch of other stuff going on around here. I'll stick with guns for right now. So we have, again, we have so many projects. And actually, the story behind this gun will make sense once I tell you about projects. So we have picked up a 1903 Springfield bolt-action rifle, World War II era bolt-action rifle. That is I would call it a reproduction. I mean, it may be real, but it's not. It's basically a put together of a 1903 Springfield Sniper. And this one is in the format of a Marine Corps Sniper. So it's got the really long, like Udertal style scope. I think it's a reproduction scope on it. And it has, I don't know if it's a Unertal or if it's what brand of actual scope is on it, but it's even marked USMC, again, because it's faux. I don't think any of this is real. We didn't pay like real prices for it. The only thing I can really kick this, well, it's interesting. This gun has two things. I can kick the gun on. The stock has been refinished. And what's interesting is it's got super strong rifling. The finish on the action and everything is fantastic. Like the parkerizing is in very good shape. And the rifling is in very good shape. The only thing that is the stock has been heavily refinished. Probably so much so that either the stock was very damaged or is a replacement, or somebody likes projects and they really put a lot of effort into making this thing shiny. So it's not even remotely, I'm not going to say it looks sporterized, but it definitely doesn't look military, the finish, but the stock is all there. And for the price of what we got, I definitely wanted a 1903 Sniper, so we could shoot it, with our German sniper that you haven't seen, and, all these other snipers you haven't seen. So that's a neat gun. The other interesting thing about the gun, well, okay, why did we buy this? It's like we have so many other projects right now. What I liked about this gun was it's done. Like I don't have to get a scope for it. I don't have to get rings, mounts for it. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. It's freaking done. And so I can just shoot it, make content with it, do what I want with it, hang it up in the armory, not having to chase function or parts or whatever. And so that has become, I've had so many projects that have stalled out or there's been issues or stuff breaks that I'm in a phase right now that I'm basically not taking on any more real heavy projects until we get caught up on a lot of this stuff. So that means I'm passing up some deals. Like I'm not going to buy, like if something's a deal and it's a parts kit, it's like, man, we got to buy that parts kit because we could do this and we could do that and we can make it semi-automatic and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, skip that shit. We have too many other problems with parts kits, guns, and other things that just, I can't handle it right now. We got to call it. So with that said, it's kind of like unspent money. And so if I'm not going to buy the cheap stuff and I skip a number of cheap parts kits or opportunities and I add it up in my mind, it's like government budgeting. I say to myself, oh, there's enough money that I can buy a complete sniper put together and mark that done on the to buy list. So that's kind of how we end up with this 1903 Springfield Sniper. So we'll post some pictures of it. Not right now, a little bit busy the next few days, crazy week. But we'll get it up there. Just give me a little bit of a break on the finish. Remember, we run a shooting reference collection. We run a shooting collection. So, for our purposes, it's fine. So, but, if you're like a super duper USMC 1903 Sniper Milsurp collector, you're going to like the gun. You're going to hate the stock. So, but, graded on the curve, cut me some slack. Don't slam me too hard in the comments. I'm just going to share this funny story. It's embarrassing, and I doubt he'll ever hear about this, but just in case, I had a accidental kind of butt dial today, driving around in the Porsche. I had to run down to Massey Ferguson. Massey Ferguson's we're having the tractor for the range serviced. It's its first, ever service since we've owned the tractor, and they're doing the filters and the filters for the AC, filters for the oil, filters for the hydraulic fluid and all that. Actually, they even said that they just topped off the hydro fluid, that they're not going to replace the hydraulic fluid. They said it was fine. They're like, it's not, so I guess we don't use our tractor that much or use it that hard, so they just topped it off. So that was kind of interesting. And what they're doing is they're putting cameras on the tractor, and they're putting emergency road lights, or the yellow safety lights on the tractor. So number one, because we take the tractor out on the road sometimes to run into town to get gas, it's just easier than lugging 25 gallons of gas back and forth. And I'm not real keen on having diesel delivered to the range for a couple reasons. One, I don't want any more people on the range than necessary. Two, I'd have to coordinate getting them onto the range and getting them through security and the gate and all that. And so that would just make, my schedule more difficult, or someone else would have to be there. Then finally, just on principle, having this tank in the air, on a gun range where bullets flying around. Again, I'd put it someplace where bullets aren't going to hit it. I'm just thinking, I don't know if that's a good idea. And also, finally, I don't know if we use enough gas that if we filled a diesel tank on the property, that it wouldn't get somehow condensation and water in it and just cause us problems. Where, on the tractor, if I want gas in a tractor, we just run it down there. And if it's freezing cold in the winter, they've got the anti-gel and the winter mix on the diesel. And so I basically can just stay summer blend, winter blend just by going to the gas station, because all the, they get all the tractors and all that coming through there. And also sometimes, especially earlier, in the winter, and I'll pay for it, I will just take the tractor to an actual road diesel pump as opposed to the off-road diesel, because the road diesel gets used more and it'll more likely have a winter blend. And I'm realizing as I'm telling you all this that I'm boring the hell out of you, so let's get moving on. So doing all this with the tractor, driving the Porsche, means I'm sitting on my phone and I'm trying to dictate to my phone to do things, send text messages and do whatever. And I remember trying to send some kind of message, and I didn't feel like that it just really quite worked. But we're down in the boonies where this Massey Ferguson dealer is. And, finally I get back tonight and kind of getting settled, looking at my phone, and I'm horror of horrors. I texted somebody that I haven't talked to directly in, I would say 14 years, but it's probably closer to 16. And Larry Vickers. And I was like, oh my God, we just sent this crazy text message to Larry Vickers, and I'm sure he doesn't remember, who I am, especially not from John1911, because John1911 didn't exist when I was talking to Larry Vickers. When I was talking to Larry Vickers, he was still in the Army. So, and through mutual contacts, we had some business together, and it went through. I mean, I would hope Larry's changed his number, and a couple hours later, I go, I really apologize, disregard, that was a butt dial text message. And I don't know if it went to Larry, or I don't know if it went to Larry Vickers, or it went to Larry Page, or if it went to Larry Summers. I don't know who got that message, but if Larry Vickers is listening to this and he got some weird text message about hi, so I'm sorry. I'm usually much more judicious and controlling of my phone. And anyone that actually knows me in real life knows that I hate the phone. I hate the phone because my phone blows up all the time. Like, I don't like to talk on the phone. I definitely like to. I mean, I don't have phone accidents because the phone is a great source of inconvenience for me. And so the idea that I inconvenience somebody else, like Larry Vickers, I apologize. Thought this was interesting. There's a story out of the Department of Justice, and you're like, oh, Department of Justice. Like, it's not going to be what you think. It's about mailing handguns through the USPS, United States Postal Service. Most of you probably are not aware of this, but the average citizen cannot mail handguns through the post office. And FFLs could, but you as a private individual could not. So and that's been going on since 1927, so 99 years. So I guess the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel, where is it? The Office of Legal Counsel in January has decided that that is a violation of the Second Amendment, and so the USPS, as of April the 2nd, has updated their guidelines for the mailing of handguns by citizens. And so why would is this? Because you're like, well, I'm buying a handgun, FFL, and like you have to go through a background check. Well, that's all true, and that's still true. But like, for example, I had a situation where I broke a gun. As a matter of fact, it was an Ed Brown 1911. Let me specify, Ed Brown 1911, and broke it bad. It wasn't Ed Brown's fault. It wasn't my fault. It was the fault of the biker that I got into a fist fight with that went to the ground, and it fucked the gun up pretty good. And so, I call Ed, like literally I'm talking to Ed Brown, and, we're discussing. He's like, well, get it to me. And I did. And there was some issues with the gun even there, but I had to use a third-party carrier, and then they worked on the gun, and they literally, I remember being surprised, it showed up at my house from the post office, like just showed up in regular mail, and I was like, what the hell? I mean, I can't remember if it was certified register, but it literally just, the postman handed me a box from Ed Brown, and it had a pistol in it, and I was like, holy shit. And because he's an FFL, he made the gun. I'm the owner of the gun. You send the gun in for work, but I had to go to UPS. I think that's what I did. Maybe FedEx. I went somewhere and had the third party carrier, and he was able to ship it as an FFL straight back to me a lot more easily. So I guess the Department of Justice has decided that is unfair. That the National Postal Service that we all pay taxes for should be able to support the Second Amendment of the Constitution, at least reasonably so, within the confines of a background check and a 4473. So I thought that was interesting. So if it's a pretty niche thing for most people, unless you're sending a gun in somewhere to a manufacturer for updates, repair, service, or that kind of thing. But it's worth noting, be forewarned. Just because you read it on the internet doesn't mean it's true. For all I know, I have no way of promising you that on April 15th you can go into some post office in your local town, and not only will they not take your handgun and ship it to Ed Brown, but maybe some guy might even call the cops on you for carrying a gun on federal property or some shit. Like, it takes a while for this kind of stuff to trickle down through the bureaucracy. And, again, not every postmaster is going to be up on the latest things coming out of Washington. But, forewarned is forearmed. Thought maybe you might find it interesting. Okay. All right. I guess we're going to go into some international, national, whatever topical stuff. A few things that I guess I want to say. The first thing is, we're going to talk about the Donald Trump and the embargo, or is it what do you call it? Not embargo. It's an embargo, right? Isn't Trump? Yeah, Trump has ordered the U.S. Navy to basically to run down any ship that's coming in and out of the Persian Gulf that, in essence, has either come from, or actually not even just the Persian Gulf, like Bandar Abbas, and the other port city in the Gulf, was it the Arabian Sea? Any ship that's coming out of Iran or coming into Iran, that they're going to intercept it or they're going to turn it back, which I think is interesting because, the Iranians have basically effectively, Trump didn't want to really admit this, but, it's a tax, it's an insurance issue and a liability issue. If the insurance company says we're not going to cover you if a drone hits your oil tanker, the oil tanker is going to sit and they're going to be like, fuck, we hope this thing ends quickly because it's a lot of money to replace an oil tanker and all that, whatever, or a lot of money to replace whatever's on the boat. And if your insurance is going to cover it, someone's going to be liable if it gets hit. So, they're sitting back and waiting. And that is effectively is what's caused the closing of the straits. Well, now Trump has basically flipped the script and dubbed the double Uno reverse or whatever that phrase would be. And so now he is closing the strait toward anybody that's paying this bullshit toll. And, Trump, number one, Trump is still hilarious. Look, as a Catholic, okay, I get it. People are, he's getting a little cross with the whole Jesus Pope thing. That's fine. Render unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's, render unto the Lord that which belongs to the Lord. I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. And, I would not expect the Pope to come out and be like, unless the Pope's calling for a crusade, the Pope's not going to be on your side, fighting the Iranians. Okay. He's just not, that's not his job. At least not in 2026. Okay. Maybe in 1066, but, not right now. So there's that. So Trump does this Uno reverse thing, and now the Iranians are coming out and they're calling the Americans pirates or something, and it's just like, you motherfuckers. Apparently, we have run a couple of the Arleigh Burke class destroyers through the straits, and I think they've turned around and come back, and we're doing or counter mine sweeping operations. And I think the littoral combat ships, there's some of those configured that can do anti-mine work, and I think they're already on station. I remember a couple weeks ago, some of them were based in Singapore, and some other ones were headed that way. Like, people knew this was coming. But what's interesting is nobody's talking about this. So, the talks broke down with Iran and the United States in Pakistan, which is whatever. And, so there's this ceasefire. The markets seem, I got to be careful because tomorrow, like, the market could drop 1,200 points. But, the markets right now seem to think that a lot of this is over, that, there still could be some volatility, but we'll see. But, what's interesting is that the Arleigh Burke destroyers are coming into the Persian Gulf. Now, I didn't study for this one because I couldn't remember which one it was. So the Arleigh Burkes, the American warships, most modern warships, have something called a VLS, Vertical Launch System. Instead of having cannons, they've got mostly rockets, right? Missiles. Well, there's the SM-2, the SM-3, and the SM-6. Now, if I recall, I think the SM-3 is, like some of these missiles are really designed for, they can go after, like cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, aircraft, and even like I think one of them they've modified now can even go after small boats. And then one of these missiles is really meant to go shoot stuff out of the atmosphere, because one of the things that we anticipate if we ever have to go to war with China is, just like the Iranians, they're going to be firing ballistic missiles at the aircraft carrier battle groups. And so the destroyers and the cruisers, hopefully we have some cruisers. We'll see that any Tycho is still in business. But, they're going to be engaging in some of this stuff, this hypersonic stuff. Hypersonic basically means it's going to go out of the atmosphere. It's going to go into space. Then it's going to come down in some kind of parabolic arc, or it's going to start turning, whatever. Like the hypersonic glide vehicle. Like, these are terms you haven't really heard this year, but you've heard these terms before. These missiles are designed to engage these incoming threats very high up. We'll just make a point here. The Iranians have fired a lot of ballistic missiles over the past, 5 weeks, whatever it is, 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And, there's been some stuff fired, out towards some ships, south of Iran. But there's been nothing fired at Navy ships in the Persian Gulf. And if we have VLS systems on ships in the Persian Gulf, transiting the Gulf, or the Straits, or in the Gulf, these ships are set up to take out ballistic missiles all day. We actually position ships, these types of ships, off the coast of Guam. We position them off of Hawaii. We position them, as a matter of fact, we even keep one in like Rota, Spain, to even protect parts of Western Europe. And then we even have the Aegis Ashore system, which I made jokes on about, on our Facebook page. Like, the Navy is in the business of shooting down ballistic missiles. And, it's kind of a secret, like how many of these anti-ballistic missile SM, whatever, if it's the SM, I'm going to say it's the SM-6. I think it's the SM-3 that actually does the anti-ballistic missile thing. But, the Navy, they're not set up to just, shoot down 5 ballistic missiles. I mean, they're in business to shoot down a shit ton of missiles. Now, again, you wouldn't want to use these missiles off of an Arleigh Burke class destroyer to shoot down these little triangular, Rashid drones. Like, you'd use basically machine guns or close-in weapons. You wouldn't want to spend expensive missiles. But I'm making a point here, and I haven't made it yet. Up until now, there's been no Navy ships in the Persian Gulf that's between Iran and everybody else. Between Iran and Saudi Arabia, between Iran and UAE, between Iran and Qatar, between Iran and, Kuwait. You'd have to kind of go up there a little bit. But, an Arleigh Burke class destroyer sitting in the Persian Gulf, and they detect any missile launches, ballistic missiles, inside of Iran, the Arleigh Burke gets first shot at it. And it gets a first shot at it early. So when you're watching these videos of ballistic missiles coming in, like a lot of them, you've seen a lot of them, impacting in Israel, because it's a modern society with lots of cameras and cell phones and all that kind of stuff. You're seeing the engagement literally at like the terminal final stage of that ballistic missile attack. And so it's the last shot. Well, you put an Arleigh Burke or two in the Persian Gulf, and motherfucker, you got the first shot. I mean, like, you could hit some of those ballistic missiles before they even get to the top of their arcs. So it's going to be really interesting to see the Navy inside of the Persian Gulf if Iran has any of these ballistic missiles left. And I promise you, and I have to be careful when I say this, but I'm just speaking on behalf of the military men and women of the United States Armed Forces. They train to do a job, and most of them, within reason, want to do the job. I promise you, there's dudes in the Navy section at the DOD that are like, please shoot some fucking ballistic missiles over us. They're like, some of these Arleigh Burks are like, we want to get some of this. I'm telling you, and there's technical guys that are like, yeah, we want the data from these engagements. Fuck yeah. Shoot these ballistic missiles now, motherfucker. I'm telling you, the Navy wants some of this. And it's not just the Navy, it's the defense contractors, the companies that make these missiles. These would be real life engagements, not just like lobbing some missile that maybe you downloaded some of the payload on, trying to get it to reach all the way out, out to Guam or some shit, and one of them doesn't even have a chance, like it failed or turned off. But like real engagements at real combat distances within the envelope of these missiles, man, keep an eye out for some of these. The Navy has engaged the Houthi stuff quite well, and it's going to be really interesting to see the Navy engaging some of these Chinese-made missiles. I got news for you. They Chinese. It's going to be really interesting. And so, obviously, pray for the safety of our sailors and, our soldiers and our airmen and our Marines. But, if I just know in my heart of hearts, there's some Navy dudes out there that are just, they itching to go. They are ready. So that'll be interesting to watch. And speaking of fuck 'em, we got to talk about NATO, because nobody's talking about this. Because everybody's, so distracted by the oil and the markets and the war and this and that, whatever. NATO is in big trouble. And, when people say NATO, they think of this overarching international, institution and all this, but NATO is just made up of countries. And the behavior of NATO during this has been so batshit crazy. I can point it out to you now. So let's go back into ancient history, like 6 months ago, okay? In ancient history, when Donald Trump was harping about taking Greenland, and his argument for taking Greenland, he had multiple arguments for Greenland, was, we have a defense pact. We've tried to take Greenland before. We've wanted to buy Greenland. We've been interested in Greenland for, 100 and some years. Truman wanted Greenland. It makes sense. Thule Station, SAC had a base up there. Now it's called Pufik or whatever it is. Now it belongs to Space Force, because it's part of the DEW line, distant or early warning, with the Soviets and nuclear weapon, the nuclear attacks coming over, the poles and all that. Like Thule Station was going to be probably like the first place to get hit, because they would have to go through the radars and the command and control and get detected, so they would knock it out first. So if Thule Station ever went offline, that was like going to be like an immediate red flag, like, yo, something's wrong. We can't get Thule on the horn. That's in Greenland. So the argument that the Europeans made here lately, just like 6 months ago, about Greenland, mind you that, he's afraid, Trump was afraid that, the Russians could land troops there, the Chinese could land troops, and then we're going to have to go to war to get them out because there's no one there to stop them, okay? And that's a good argument, because the Chinese in particular are definitely interested in the Arctic, and, the Russians consider themselves an Arctic, they are an Arctic country. And, the argument that the Europeans made, they're like, well, look, you don't need to own it. You have access to it anytime you want it. We have a treaty. We have an agreement. Anytime you want it or need it, it's there for you. You've already got access. You don't need to own it as sovereign territory. It's okay. It's fine. Fast forward, all of a sudden now, okay, you've got these European countries, you got the UK, we can't, okay, let me just make this point. Y'all interested in the B-2 bomber, right? B-2 stealth bomber. Okay, the B-2 stealth bomber is, until the B-21 comes on board, is our most advanced, sensitive, tip of the spear air asset, deep penetrating, whatever. Like we just don't fly B-2s everywhere. We don't land them at like strange airports and do all kinds of stuff. We keep them in specific shelters. We keep them where they can be serviced. They're not accessible to people. We don't even want people get near the skin of these aircraft. Like we don't want them seeing the backs of them or the engines or any of that kind of stuff. So the B-2 bombers are only really allowed to be based, to come in and park at 3 places anywhere around the world. Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where they're all based. Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, which is a British territory, which I will come back to in a minute. And there's the base, is it Mendenhall or whatever the base is called? It's not Lake and Heath. I mean, it's Mendenhall. There's a base in England. And, England's all of a sudden like, yeah, no, you can't use these bases. We pay for these fucking bases. We pay leasing, and we pay for the facilities, and we pay the maintenance and all this other kind of stuff. And they make a lot of money off of us. And the Brits are like, you can't use this. Diego Garcia as well. The French are saying you can't fly through their airspace to get to the Middle East. The Spanish are saying you can't fly through their airspace or use any facilities in Spain, because we have facilities in Spain that we fucking pay for. And so B-2 pilots have to fly all the way back way around the earth to get to do a strike in Iran so they can stay out of everybody's airspace. I don't know how many times they have to tank, but it's crazy. Like, these are like almost 40-hour flights or some shit, or some crazy, 2 dudes in a B-2, just because these assholes in fucking NATO are like, no, you can't use our airspace, to protect the oil and allies, that support you. NATO. It's your fucking oil. We don't get any oil from the fucking Persian Gulf. And it's like, okay. I want if you're in Europe and you're listening to this podcast, and we do have listeners in Europe, and if you're in the United Kingdom in particular, because the rest of Europe, you're not going to be as surprised by this, but I think in the UK, you need to, if you hear my voice, you need to listen, and you need to start talking to someone over there. Relations between the United States and United Kingdom haven't been this bad since 1812. This is not a Donald Trump issue. I promise you, everybody in America is pissed off about this. America is angry as fuck about this. And what's become clear is you guys don't spend enough, not just the Brits, all these assholes in Europe, Canada too, by the way, don't spend enough to meet your commitments to NATO. Okay? And then we spend more than the commitments to NATO. And then the money that you don't spend on these NATO commitments, you turn around and spend on social welfare programs and all this other shit that, it goes against free speech and religious freedom and all this crazy shit you guys do. And we're basically subsidizing this. And you're now fucking us. NATO's destroyed. I mean, NATO is over at this point. And even if someone listening to this is going to be saying to themselves, well, Donald Trump doesn't have the authority to exit NATO. He's going to have to go through the Senate, and he doesn't have the authority to end that kind of treaty, so I'm not worried about it. Well, just like I told you that there are dudes in the Department of Defense and the Navy Annex that are sitting there going, come on, Iran, shoot some of them ballistic missiles because we want some of that. There are people in the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, that are saying to themselves, we could close bases in England. We could close bases in Spain. In theory, we could even close bases in Italy, because now Italy's now got this fucking disease. And we could open a base in North Africa. We've had one before, a strategic air command base. In North Africa, one of those countries would love to have a big old air base in North Africa. So we could fly, through the Middle East and we could reach parts of Europe if we need to. Israel has been talking about letting us put a serious base in now. And Trump was even talking about possibly putting in a base, taking over the Gaza Strip at one point, which I really liked, actually. I thought that had a lot of potential. I'm not saying the idea was fleshed out or it would have worked, but I'm like, I definitely would want to have that conversation. Move all those fucking people out and we'll just take it. United Arab Emirates has been talking to the point now that I'm even hearing it, that they are now asking the United States, y'all want to put a big old fucking base in the UAE, like a giant one, naval base and airstrips? And it's like, yeah, we might as well. I mean, this is where the problems are at. This is the power. It gets us closer to China. It gets us closer to the problems in the Middle East. I mean, we have to defend NATO. We have to defend all these Europeans, but we also we have commitments to defend Japan, and we have commitments to defend our allies in the Pacific, Australia and all these other countries. We have deals where we have defense treaties with Egypt, obviously with Israel. We have defense treaties with Saudi Arabia, with Jordan, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. We've got defense treaties with Philippines. We have defense treaties with South Korea. Like, we've got a lot of shit going on, and it's like we don't have to defend Europe at this point. And here's the ultimate irony of irony. Trump could close a bunch of these bases and reopen bases in other parts of the world. And actually, we could just start negotiating directly with individual countries. Like, maybe Finland wants us to have a base. We're like, well, okay, we could have it. There's a NATO contract. We can't get out of this treaty. But it's like, I'll come back to that. But we could negotiate a direct new agreement with Finland, and we could put something in Finland. We could negotiate a new direct treaty with Poland, and we could put something in Poland if they want. We could bunch of stuff in Poland. We got some stuff already in Poland. We don't need these Western European fucks anymore. And here is the scariest part about these assholes. And if you're in Europe, I'm dead serious. If we were to leave a bunch of these bases, how long until one of your governments decides, hey, we were approached by China and they would like to go ahead and take over the base in Rota, Spain. They'd like to run a naval base out of there. And you assholes would fucking take the money and do it. So what are we doing here at this point? NATO is over at this point. I'm telling you, I've never been anti-NATO. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm not one of these we got to get out of the NATO and we got to get out of the UN. NATO's functionally over, and it'll end up being over. The UN's in big trouble. Mind you, like what started all of this, by the way, and it's all this shit in the Middle East, was because the people from the Gaza Strip came across into Israel and killed like 1,300 people, 1,400 people, whatever it was. And a lot of the money and weapons and infrastructure that all these people have is either coming from Iran or it's being funneled through the UN, and they're, we're going to give you all this money to build sewer systems in Gaza, and then they build all these underground bunkers. Like, it's all UN money. Everyone knows it. So much so that there's been actually an agreement. Whatever the UN agency that used to operate in Gaza, up until October 7th, like, it's been there for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it is, they've agreed to shut it down because they know they're caught. And we're just calling bullshit on everything everywhere. So NATO's cooked. Things are going to be changing. The Europeans are fucking traitors or bastards. I mean, you guys are just terrible. And here's the ultimate irony of irony. So I'm going to go back and touch on some of this. Diego Garcia. There's a British base, I think, in Cyprus, and then there's the British base at the Gibraltar, which is at the mouth of the Mediterranean Sea. The base in Gibraltar, the base in Cyprus, and Diego Garcia are sovereign British territory. They owned that territory. They owned those bases. They don't need permission from the host countries. They've claimed that as British territory. But they're going to turn around and fuck us, and they're not even spending enough money to defend themselves. And it's like, at this point, like, I think we should take Diego Garcia from the Brits. They're fuckfaces. They're trying to give it to China and fuck us down there. That's a whole other separate issue. Mind you, now that'd be 2 of the 3 B-2 bases taken off the board at this point. I think the world we knew it, is going to be radically different. And I'm going to get off of this with just one final little tidbit of news. There's a guy, he's the president of Argentina, and I can't remember pronounce his name. He's a kind of funny, hairy-looking, little hobbit-looking guy. Millie, whatever his name is. And he's real popular because I guess he's a conservative, and he's more open, like free market, and he's turning Argentina around, and, like, people like him. The West likes him. He's bringing Argentina back. What just so happens about a week or so ago, he came out and he was exerting Argentina's claim over the Falkland Islands and, what they call the Malvinas. Remember the Falklands War in 1982? And the Brits went down there with their task force. And, the Argentinians were using a lot of American equipment, the A4 Skyhawks and all that. And they were an ally to the U.S., but we tried to, not get in the middle of it. And part of me's like, hey, we can take Diego Garcia. Argentina goes for the Falklands. We can just be like, yo, that's like an illegal war, dudes. We don't give a fuck. Like, you go figure that out. Go take your carriers with no defense, with no Aegis defense screens around them, and go on down there to Argentina and Gulf Coast Argentina and see if you can hold on to them islands, because we're busy trying to keep the world free, and we're not interested in your stupid fucking colonies anymore. If you're in Europe and you're listening to this podcast and you haven't gotten the message how out of control mad America is about all of this, you are dumber than a hammered rock. Because I promise you, once this war ends with Iran, there is a reckoning coming. Okay, we're going to do the police blotter, and we're going to go ahead and call it. Be a little bit more positive, police blotter. First thing is, there's a dude, his name is Sam Altman, and you've probably heard his name. He is the president or CEO? He is the chief executive officer of OpenAI, and he lives in San Francisco, California. And there's Anthropic, and then there's OpenAI, and then there's Grok. But OpenAI is one of the big players, really in many ways the biggest player in artificial intelligence and all these things that make the news. And, there's a lot of people that are upset or worried about AI. Well, what happens is when you start to really run down people and make them the boogeyman, don't be surprised when the crazies start showing up to do stuff. And so Sam Altman's house has been attacked twice in just 2 days. The first attack happened, someone showed up and set the gate on fire. It wasn't clear if they were trying to get in or not. And then the second attack happened. Amanda Tom, age 25, and Muhammad Tariq Hussein, 23, showed up and started shooting, I guess, at his house. Because maybe they hate capitalism. Maybe they're afraid of the Terminator, the T-1000s, and Skynet. Maybe they're little commies. Maybe they're terrorists. Maybe they're sympathizers, whatever little bullshit, drama that they've got going on in their mind. Sam Altman's got a problem. And one of these dudes, I think, actually compared himself to, who's the dude that shot who assassinated the CEO of the is it United Healthcare, whatever the healthcare company is, Mangino or whatever his name is, try to romanticize like he's like another one of these people. And I'm telling you, these little Red Guard, Red Scare little anarchists, this is becoming a thing. How it was like during the war on terror, we had a bunch of these like people that would self-radicalize and suddenly these white dudes would suddenly start calling themselves Allah Akbar, and because they're mentally unstable. Well, now all the mentally unstable are going to get attracted to going after the Skynet problem or the AI problem, and they're going to want to start hurting people, and in some weird, jihad or whatever, crusade or whatever, soap operas in their own brain, because you're attracting crazy people, to the problem because you demonize these people. And that's the downside to, the way the media's been portraying a lot of this AI stuff. And stay tuned, that's going to be a bigger story. Second police blotter, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. A father allegedly built a homemade pipe bomb to entertain guests who were coming to his home, then injured himself after accidentally detonating it. I remember, before I finish this story, there was a guy, this like kind of pre-internet, but people that made pipe bombs frequently would blow themselves up. And what would happen, there was like this anarchist cookbook thing. I think we might even have a copy of it. But, didn't really have like stuff available on the internet, even common sense. So, people would like, okay, I'm going to get a pipe and I'm going to fill it up with whatever. And maybe they'll put some packing in it, but they would, screw this thing closed. And then they'd be like, oh, I need to put a wick in it. So like, I need to drill a hole in it. And once they start drilling that hole, high-speed drill, friction and heat and spark, and they would blow themselves up. It was very common. So this guy, homemade pipe bomb, injuring himself, accidentally detonating it. Let's see here. He arrived at the hospital April 4th because he thought it would be a good entertainment for the group. They'll specify his guy's name is Peachy. The suspect's name is Travis Peachy, so isn't that just Peachy? They're not saying how he detonated it or why it went off by accident, but I would think a pipe bomb, unless you're putting nitroglycerin in it, like I would think it'd be, unless old dynamite, I would think it'd be pretty stable. Unless you trying to drill a hole in it. Like that was always in the day, if there's anyone out there in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, that can send me a podcast at John1911.com, podcast at John1911.com. Let me know what 51-year-old Travis Peachy was doing when he set off this pipe bomb. It didn't kill him because apparently he took himself to the hospital. And that's what alerted authorities that we might have a problem here. So my money's on he tried to drill it for a wick. What's the truth? Okay, here's my final police blotter. And this one's going to be a little bit for Danny, too. So, let me see if I can find this here. So, you didn't think we were going to get out of this episode without talking about old Eric Swalwell, did you? Well, we're not really, but we're kinda. So, Eric Swalwell, the guy who was running for governor, he resigned today. I was in meetings today. Danny or Kraken texted me and said, Swalwell resigned or dropped out of the race or did whatever. It's like he's not going to be in Congress. He's not going to run for. I guess he's pulling a race for governor and all that. Well, Swalwell has a backer. He's got a lucky charm, a billionaire that backs him, and the billionaire's name is Stephen Klubeck, and I believe Stephen Klubeck he's a California billionaire. He's a big Democrat, and he's been given a bunch of money to Swalwell. As a matter of fact, when you see videos of Swalwell denying allegations or spinning things before he dropped out, he was in this billionaire's house. He was like shacked up there for a while. And you're like, what is this? Why am I telling you this? Why are we in the police blotter? Hear me out. This is great. So Stephen Kloobek, Klubeck, I think he makes his money in timeshares. Yuck. 50 some, 61, whatever years old, whatever it is. So he has a new fiance, and his fiance's name is Adva Levy, Lavie. She's 28. And Adva Levy is currently on community control. She's wearing a monitor, or an ankle monitor, because she's pled not guilty to grand theft, six felonies, including grand theft, burglary, and unauthorized use of identifying information. So the billionaire who's giving Swalwell a bunch of money until he finally cut him loose, because he says Swalwell doesn't have integrity. So I'm cutting him loose, so Swalwell drops out. This is this guy's fiance. He just proposed to this girl like a month ago. Mind you, this fiance is still currently married to somebody else. Just bear with me with this. Prosecutors accuse Levy of targeting rich old men and luring them into honey traps where she would swindle them for cash and a luxury lifestyle. The former penthouse model and social media influencer, what a weird way to say OnlyFans, also known as Mia Ventura. Okay, there it is. There's the name some of you may know. Would allegedly con her way into her affluent partners' homes before robbing them of cash, designer items, and jewelry. She is set to tie the knot with Klubeck, a 64-year-old real estate tycoon who funded timeshare company Diamond Resorts on June 18th near the Western Wall in Jerusalem, Israel. But the ruinous week to slap her with an ankle monitor and surrender her passport could scupper her plans to wed the billionaire, as she may be forced to remain in the U.S. to face trial. Basically, she's a flight risk, and she's on community control, and they're like, bitch, you ain't leaving the country because you're a hustler. She was ordered by a judge this week to not leave California without permission, and showed her angst when confronted by reporters about the potential breakdown of her nuptials. I just can't wait for this nightmare to be over with, she told the California Post as she left the courthouse in a striking green aloe sweatsuit and matching green handbag. She's wearing a pretty hoochie outfit to court, like this bodysuit thing. Let's see here. Being for the ankle monitor, founder, timeshare, it's going to repeat. I hate how these AI things repeat. So here's, and I'll have pictures of her. So here's the thing. So this is all happening right now while this guy Swalwell is getting jammed up for all whatever monkey business he's got going on as he's trying to run for governor. I mean, that's who this guy is, who is supporting Swalwell, acting all holier than thou. Like all these people, and mind you, these are the same people that are complaining about, suddenly like they're they want to hang Jeffrey Epstein on Trump, which is not true. It's just really interesting. So this story caught my attention, is why I put it in a blotter, because I've heard of this girl. And it's like, no, it's not because she's OnlyFans. I don't have an OnlyFans account. I don't know how any of that works. And no, I don't know her name as Levi or Adva Lavi, Lavie, or whatever her stage name is, or maybe her American name or her whatever name. I had heard, because we run a podcast, so we subscribe to, and we pay attention to the kind of the podcast space. I mean, we're not big players in the podcast space. No one really pays attention to us who are podcasters. But, like if there's like software, or there's a process, or there's something that could like benefit. So like we belong to some professional organizations that, kind of cater to podcasters. And so that is where I first heard of this girl. Here's why. And I didn't realize it was her until they described it in another story. This girl showed up at a podcast that also does video. So it's on YouTube. And apparently, like with a bunch of these one of these, I don't know, roundtable hoochie podcasts, whatever, things that they do, which is fine. This thing was broadcast live. At one point, she got up and excused herself, I would assume to go to the bathroom, was gone for, I guess, like an hour. She went to the green room, which is where guests kind of stage themselves before they come onto a show. And she went and she robbed every one of these people, went through all their purses and all their stuff, stole all kinds of shit. And here's the thing. It's not like this was... So this was reported in these groups. They're like, yo, this girl, I got a story for you. This girl, she robbed everybody. Like, and they even mention, like in the publishing and the reporting within the podcast community, they even said it publicly, because I guess they've got her on video. Like this girl, this Adva Levine girl, like goes through and just robs everybody. Like she robbed other hookers, other OnlyFans girls. She's robbing, sugar daddies, or whatever you call these John dudes. Not John1911. Rob these dudes, in their mansions at, whatever, OnlyFans.com or whatever's going on. And now, some reason, just within the past month or two, she's suddenly engaged to this billionaire, and they have found love. And he's an upstanding guy, and he's cutting Swalwell loose because, he broke the circle of trust or whatever crazy thing. This whole universe is so batshit crazy out of control that I had to put it in the podcast. In the blotter, I had to tell you. I thought it was incredible. So anyway, thank you for indulging me. This wraps up episode 401 of the John1911 Podcast. You want to see any more stories or pictures or links and stuff like this, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun and not marrying OnlyFans girls. Everybody, have a good night.